this crazy world that we live in. We won't cover what we were just talking about, but this world is really going too fast, turning in circles. I'm starting to think that we're crazier than the soap operas, and I don't watch soap operas, so I can't even quote them if I wanted to, which is maybe a good thing. But the way technology moves and AI taking over, we've been talking about that. And did you notice, Tom, this morning? I didn't notice it until I tweeted. We were just talking about Elon Musk and the tweeted versus posted, but I tweeted a little excerpt from Spaces that what USA Biz Party covered this morning was basically exactly the same thing as we covered last week. Did you notice that?
I did.
Okay, I
There's
didn't.
a lot of that kind of overlap from time to time.
I didn't notice that at all, and I thought, I mean, I knew it was in the ballpark, but I thought, wow, we've switched a couple words around, and it's basically exactly the same thing. But I mean, that's normal. That's kind of the buzzwords that are going around, and
I
it's
need
going to
you to
happen.
entertain our wonderful audience for 32 and a half seconds. I forgot I left a noise on in the other room.
Ah, okay, I gotcha. And I am going to actually, well, you know what? By the time I figure out how to, not figure out, it's not a question mark, but mute our friend Tom, he'll be back and he will already have the wonderful noise. There we go. See,
31,
I told you.
32 and a half.
I told you he'd be back. I was just saying I was gonna mute you while you went to go do that. And I thought by the time I figure out how to mute you, not that it's a matter of figuring it out, then you'd already be back.
No
But
problem. I know that this microphone is more sensitive than I think about it. And when I have something on in the other room, it's kind of background noise and I dismiss it. And then we started recording and I'm going, oh, wait a minute, I didn't turn that thing off. So apologies.
well, I should catch it too, but I'm getting so used to hearing it that I didn't
See?
even think about it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like Mr. Pump here is telling me my blood sugar is low. Well, that's nice of it. It could have been really nice and told me a half an hour ago and I could have done something about it. So we'll have to definitely keep on schedule because it'll just keep going off on that one. So we are talking about, I was going to say we're talking about interactive live. What are we talking about tonight? Now that
Integrated marketing.
integrative, yes. So what are your thoughts on the topic, Tom?
Well, I'll confess, I'm not a strong marketeer and I haven't really studied it and done a lot of things like that with it. My marketing has been more a function of survival. I got a business, I need clients, go find them is kind of the method. And so for the longest time, I just did word of mouth. I'd speak at conferences and I'd meet people, I'd shake a lot of hands, and they'd hire me to come either do consulting or teaching or any number of things that I do. And after COVID, when the in person training evaporated, I suddenly had to do something more akin to traditional marketing. So much of this is new to me. And when I hear phrases like integrated marketing, my brain says you're integrating, you're joining something with something. What are the somethings you're? And I confess I do a great job of confusing myself over what it is I'm really trying to do. And so I pick up what I can, as I always have, from context. What does it really mean in terms of integrating your marketing? And to me, and again, I could be way off base from how other people might interpret it, but to me, it's taking your branding message, your appeal, your value proposition, and condensing it into its tightest format to reach the broadest possible audience across platforms. And then you don't have to do a campaign here and a campaign there and another one over here, and you do video here and audio there. It's like, no, you integrate all of that into a marketing message to be the most efficient and effective way that you can present yourself to a potential range of clients. And then you test it. You say, like any marketing, you test, say, did this work? Or do I have to do some A/B testing? Or do I have this audience on this platform and a little different audience on that platform? So while I've got the same message, same brand, same everything, except tweak a couple words because this audience would be more in tune with those words than this audience would be. And so I realize I'm speaking a bit abstractly, but that's the best I can express my view of what when we talk about integrated marketing, what that really means to me. How would I implement it?
I like that definition, though. I think it makes the most sense, humanly speaking. You know, how in this day and age of AI, you can stick it into an AI and say, "Hey, what is it?" And then it spits out something that you're. Even I'm going, "Huh? What was that?" It looks like a bunch of words, but I don't know what you just said. You know, to the AI program because and all the AI programs will give you basically the same definition, and it just feels like a bunch of gook as far as definition. It's worse than looking it up in a dictionary, but it talks about the different social platforms and all of that. But what you just described, I think, makes the most sense to a human being by a human being as far as um, how you could actually implement that. It does make sense. And I did not set out to pick this topic with the idea of promoting Publer, and I am an affiliate of, actually, maybe it's the right hand. I am an affiliate of Publer. I will say that right now. But I think of it in terms of because Publer has so many different social platforms, as far as an application, how do I set out to integrate this? The actual application of what you just described, my first task, if I was going to do that this evening, would be I'm going to sit down with Publer, the application, and start to take my marketing message and implement it on the different channels using Publer because it's a way to take it from point A to point B and actually implement it because I have a tool. Otherwise, it remains in the abstract. Like, all right, that's great. Let's put it on the different social channels, but now how do I do that? It's helpful if you have a tool.
Well, let me draw a comparison, if I may, that that at least helps me think through it. I don't know if it helps other people understand or work with it. But take a big account. Take a Coca Cola, and Coke tastes great. It's the real thing. Whatever their message is, but then they'll run ads on different sports venues because people drink soda while watching TV or watching sport events or at sporting events, and so they'll have a a video advertising their product with football players, and they'll run those during football games, and then they'll have another one, same message, with hockey players, and they'll run that during hockey games, and then they'll have others with soccer players, or as our European brethren call them, real football, uh, soccer players, and they will then run those ads, and yet it's the same message, and so they've integrated their message clearly, but appealed to slightly different audiences in each context. And so to me, that's integrating your message across platforms, across audiences, across whatever you're trying to reach. Them being a large product as they are, they can segment their market in that way and approach them that way. Whereas, the mom and pops, the entrepreneurs like us, our audience is fairly well defined, it's fairly well dispersed. And so how do we find a concentration of it in sufficient quantity to have marketing is always a numbers game, but to have enough people see it, respond to it, and be drawn to coming to us for their work that they need done. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but in my mind, that's how it all kind of sorts out. And I think, okay, then I get it. That's what I should be doing.
It does make sense. And when you were describing that, I was actually thinking about Capital One, and I actually like their ads. And one of them that used to pop on, what was it Freebie or one of those streaming channels where you have to watch commercials. I thought we got away from commercials, 40 years ago or whatever. But anyway, the commercial would pop on with Guns N' Roses and Slash. I think was, and he'd be playing. Oh my goodness, I should know all this off the top of my head, but whatever it was, familiar song. Right away, I'd tune in because I recognized the song and I'm a musician. And it was like I was at one of those concerts and I was right there, right by the stage, and I'd seen him perform, and it's like, oh wow, this brings back memories, and I'm right there, and that commercial really spoke to me. So yeah, of course, it's like, oh, I should go. Why? Actually, I already have Capital One. So I was already there. But the next commercial was something with playing, I don't know, something sports. So it didn't mean that much to me as far as Capital One using sports. But of course, that's going to speak to someone that's geared to sports. And I can't remember what they're using now, but they have several different commercials and they're different groups of people. And I thought that's really ingenious because they're going to grab somebody in each of those groups. They've got it
And
pretty well covered.
I agree with you. And I can give you one more Capital One example. If you're not familiar with NASCAR racing, when you
Hmm.
finally are down to the last lap, the white flag waves. That means final lap.
Hmm.
And Capital One sponsors the final lap on every race. It's the white flag, the lap, and I, I should be ashamed of myself. I'm more interested in who's going to win the race than anybody who's sponsoring it. Um, but but that sponsoring the last lap is unique to racing. It wouldn't make sense in football or hockey or any of the other sports. And by the way, you do know that NASCAR racing is the only true sport because everything else is just a game.
That didn't make sense to me, but I'll
It's a
believe
football
you.
game, a baseball game.
Oh,
NASCAR is the only true sport.
okay. I'll have to run that by because Michael actually was working as far as driving. I can't wait. I have to be careful what I say because I'm not supposed to divulge information. But let's just say that he was working with NASCAR. I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, it starts to come full circle on some of that stuff. But yeah,
Full circle, I get it. A lap.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So
No, but again, it's still the Capital One message,
mhm,
but they have tailored it to these different audiences, and they're big enough that they can call that to me they can call that an integrated approach because it's the same message tailored
yep.
to the specific audience. The smaller people don't have that benefit, so they have to have one message, maybe some slight tweaks on different platforms, but it's basically the same in each case.
Good point. So it's not just a matter of doing the different approaches with social media. It's a matter of these other actual approaches as far as the campaign.
Again, I could be considered totally off base by smarter, wiser people, but that's my interpretation of how to best work with it.
There's something I was looking up in my research, and it's like there was another facet of this, and I went and took a nap, and I think my nap wiped it, like a blackboard, completely wiped it, which is maybe good because then I got good rest, but it completely wiped it from from my thought process as far as research. Note to self, take notes, and then you actually remember. But um, I'll have to find that, but it's on the other computer. That's not a very good excuse. Um, I have no idea. Any any other thoughts, Tom? Let me look at our
Well,
Twitter feed.
marketing, I admit, marketing is a black art to me. How do you convince people to buy from you? How do you, and this sounds a little crass to some people, I suppose, but how do you separate people from their money? I mean, that's what it's all about. And
Mhm.
then you look at some successful marketing in the past and you think, why was that so successful? For example, how do girls in bikinis sell cars? I don't know, but they do. And so I look at marketing in a lot of sense. It's like this doesn't make sense to me, and that wouldn't necessarily entice me. But then maybe I'm not their audience. Something else would entice me to want to do business with somebody. And so I think that's really what we're trying to deal with. We're taking a large population, we're segmenting it, and then trying to figure out what makes them tick. What is the key persuasive tool that will work with them?
There's something this morning, and I won't go into it. At some point, I may advertise what it is for the sake of that it worked on me. But there was something. It was like I think it was $8 or something, so it didn't break the bank. But there was something this morning that I was listening to this person advertise it and explain why it needed to be purchased. And I remember the whole time that this person was explaining it, all I could think of is, I have to buy it. I have to buy it. I have to buy it. And I'm thinking, what are they doing that I mean, I think I'm an intelligent woman. I think I could resist this urge to have to buy it. I mean, I know it's only $8, but it's still $8. Why am I feeling this drive to go buy it? Why do I have to buy it? So it makes me wonder, whatever they're using on me, why don't I use that on somebody else? Except that I don't want to manipulate people. But I mean, is getting into the psyche aspect of it. So again, I don't want to manipulate people. I don't want to do anything that's unethical. Definitely don't want to do anything that's unethical. But you look at what is it that, as you said, Tom, that separates people from their money in a good way. You're thinking, hey, I want to offer something good to people, but I want to get people to pull their credit card out and actually offer up the money.
And I'll be the first to admit that it's not my forte. I went off and wrote a book because I really wanted to have a message to give to people. I quickly learned you do not get rich selling books. It's just not how it works. Sure, you want to sell them, and a bunch of people came along and they bought them and they've read them and we talk about it, and that's great. But it's not a get rich quick scheme by any stretch of the imagination. Thank God minimum wage laws don't apply. I could never afford myself to write a book. Uh, but but I think you're right. Now let me take this a step further, which and I admit gets a little creepier. I saw something on social media recently. I have not had a chance to fully explore it and understand it. So I'm not clear what I was really looking at, like you were saying. Apparently, Apple has obtained a patent for an additional thing in their earbuds, which reads your brainwave patterns and sends data back to Apple about what you're thinking while you're listening. Now,
Well,
again,
that's scary.
it was a brief little, scroll through it. It was like, well, what did I just see? kind of reaction to it. But it was a patent application type format with the drawing and the little, diagrams and all those things. And the caption was about how Apple had patented this technology. And when you think about what Elon Musk is doing with the Neuralink, now being tested in humans, uh, you know, it's plausible. I don't know whether it was just a social media prank or whatever it was, but you start seeing these things and you think, that could be quite interesting. That could be one thing that I might want to use, assuming it meets my ethics. I'm not sure it does.
Hmm.
Or it's something I want to guard against if somebody else is trying to influence me in an inappropriate way like that. So I don't know the right answer to those things. It depends on the message. But back to where I started with this was simply, I don't trust marketing to begin with.
Right.
It is a persuasive tool that is designed to separate you from your money almost by
And
any means. And so I'm always
that's
skeptical.
scary. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you. That
No,
what you
that's good.
described is scary.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's one thing to have that exist, but then to have a patent for it is like having a patent to someone else's brainwaves. That just doesn't seem right.
Well, you're not patenting the brainwaves. You're
I know
patenting
you're
the
patenting the
device
access
that reads them,
to
that
right, right,
interprets them.
right. But that just doesn't seem quite right to patent a device that could read your mind. I mean that doesn't seem right. But then again, if they don't patent it, someone else is going to patent it. So it's like, do you want Apple to have that right as far as device, or do you want someone else? You know?
Well, if I can digress a bit, talking about marketing in in a more global sense of things, one of the best books I ever read about such things was called The Discipline of Market Leaders. And it was by two guys, Tracy and Wiersma. And they identified three types of companies that were extremely successful because they focused on one of these three things. And the first one was operational excellence. And what they mean by that is that if you go into a Starbucks and order a caramel macchiato, any Starbucks, anywhere in the world, caramel macchiato is made with this kind of coffee in this kind of way at this kind of temperature with these kind of syrups with it should be identical. Now we all know that's not necessarily true. Each barista has their own little way of doing it, I suppose. But essentially, it's the same product. Same with a Big Mac. You go anywhere from McDonald's, order a Big Mac. It's two all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, which we know because
Okay.
that was one of their ads at one point in time. And it's ingrained in your head when you hear about it. But the point is, it's always the same operational excellence. The next one was technical excellence. And their point here was companies like Apple would reinvent themselves. They would make their own product obsolete. And the reason was because if they didn't, somebody else would, as
Hmm.
BlackBerry learned.
Yep.
BlackBerry didn't need to do anything but have pagers. Well, those were made obsolete long ago, and BlackBerry almost went out of business. I know they struggled for a long time. And so the technical excellence is another way to dominate your market. The third area is what they call total solution providers. And I've always pictured myself that way because in the nature of the things I deal with, every contract's going to be different. Every dispute's going to be different. There's always going to be these differences, and you can't just come in and sprinkle your little magic fairy dust on the problem and it goes away. What you need to do is come up with the innovative, unique, custom tailored, total solution. Fix the whole problem, not
Mhm.
just the little piece of it. And their point was simply, if you can be one of those three, pick one and just dominate it to the best of your ability, you will be a market leader. And I've always believed it. I always believe that to be true. So the message then becomes, do you make the best Big Mac at every one of your locations? Do you make the best technology and you're going to come out with a better one 6 months from now? Or can you consume the whole body of whatever's happening in a situation, be 100% situationally aware of a particular problem and know exactly how to diagnose and solve the problem, whatever it is. And in fact, this because you've seen my old business cards. When I started my company, the title I picked was Chief Problem Solver, because I figured if you didn't have a problem, you didn't need a consultant. On the
Mhm.
other hand, if you had a government contract, you had a problem. You might not know it yet, but you had a problem. So uh, that's been my, kind of marketing message since day one.
And sadly, I mean, I shouldn't say sadly, because I agree with you. I fully agree with you. But sadly, as far as the creative aspect, for instance, your book, and for me, it was my music. Those two things don't fit in any of those categories because like you, when I put together my album, I mean, everyone had told me I'd done well. I'd won, literally, I've lost count of how many awards. Put together the album, it sat, and I'm not lying when I say number one. It didn't. When I say number one, I don't mean it just hit number one. I mean it didn't fall from the number one position for over a year. It sat there in Los Angeles, which isn't an easy market, then jazz. And after a year, I was actually, I think I got bored, so I actually stopped promoting it and everything else. Anyway, so number one position, I thought that, hey, if I'm hitting number one and all these people are coming to me, I got marriage proposals, all this stuff as far as success, I should be making money. That seems like it makes sense. All these fans, everything. But of course, they wanted the music for free, blah, blah, fast forward. Um, I didn't get rich off the music, but a few dollars here, a few dollars there, whatever. But even now, even after that, people hear the album and they're like, why isn't she like as popular as Madonna was? Why isn't she on stage? Why isn't she touring? She is better than anyone else I've heard. Well, because that's not how it works. It doesn't matter if I'm better than anyone else, according to, because Michael will play it in the bus and people are like, oh my goodness, she's better than anyone we've heard. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying as a result. But that's not what makes the money. That's
I
not how it
understand.
works. So it's not about being the best book out there. It's not about being the best album out there. That's not what makes the money. That's not what it's not going out there and being the best as far as the creative arts. And that's what I found out, that you don't just go out there and have the best album and all of a sudden it's not, what is that movie? You'll build it and they will come or something.
Field of
The
Dreams.
Yeah, Field of Dreams. That nice movie, but it doesn't quite work that way.
I agree with you. When I was working on the leadership book, the first question I was asked is, well, there's thousands of leadership books. What makes yours different? And I was able to articulate that I taught people how to build themselves into a leader using project management skills and disciplines. That's why it's
Hmm.
sustained leadership, WBS, work breakdown structure. And they were like, "Oh, that's unique. That's different. That people will like that." Great. I've worked ever since to find those people that would like that. and you're right, it's not always a given, no matter how brilliant your work product might be. And I'm not saying mine is necessarily, but how do you then get people to buy into it? The marketing piece of it is just so vastly different than the creation piece of it. And you got to be prepared if you're going to be a creative, and most solopreneurs, entrepreneurs are. You're going to have to figure out how to market. And you may not like marketing. You may not even like people, like some of us introverts, not to mention any names. But you got to do it. You
Yeah.
just got to do it.
And I agree with you. Your book is phenomenal. It should be number one as far as leadership. then the stuff that's out there that's number one pales in comparison. But it just, there's not a direct correlation to what's number one out there and the content therein. It,
It's funny because no matter how hard I worked on it or how much I built into it, the question I get, and I never get this question, but I get messages that are this question. Is your name Blanchard or Maxwell? Oh no, well then we don't need you.
yeah,
They're market dominators and they've been around
yep.
a long time, and they have great stuff. I'm not putting them down at all. I quote them in my books, but my approach to it is just vastly different. So I don't know. We'll keep plugging. We've got the roadmap up in the platform now, and we've got some other neat tools and gamification, which I'm told is important to the younger market. And again, that's my point. I don't know this stuff very well. I just try to follow the instructions I've given and learn marketing along the way. It's tough.
It's it's this. I told you about the my travels as far as sound production. I know, line for line as far as quality, and I'm not saying this to brag, but as far as quality goes, I outrank other people that, and I also have more experience and more education. When I look up my competitors, they'll say, "Oh, I'm the best out there. I do the best as far as video, blah blah blah." And when I listen, I'm not agreeing with them, but hey, it's not about my opinion. But then I look at their education, I look at their experience. They'll have 5 years of experience. I have 30 or 35. I've lost track now. To their
Far
five
far too
years.
young for that, but go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'll look at the education. I actually have education, whereas they don't. So it's like, wait a minute, what are we comparing this to? But the quality isn't there. And it's like, but they've marketed. You can, I don't want to say the word, it's, SH blank T on a shingle. And they're really good at marketing that. And so they get to be top of the list. And the same thing with, I just said it tonight, SEO. I was surprised to find out that, because I've been doing that for nearly, SEO kind of started in 1997, and I got involved in 1998, 1999 doing SEO. I don't advertise myself because it's not really what turns my crank as far as, I mean, SEO is great. I know how to do it. I was putting people at number one back in the turn of the century, but other people are out there saying, "Hey, look at me. I've been doing it for 20 years, blah, blah, blah." I actually outrank those people, but I don't go out and brag saying, "Look at me. I outrank them." But it's funny because I do outrank some of the people that are on the circuit speaking at conferences. But people don't know about that because I'm not out bragging about it, you know? But yeah, I agree with you, Tom. Need to figure out how to do the marketing piece on that.
Well, in truth, we have these discussions, we make these recordings, and this is part of our marketing approach to things to get the word out, talk to people
Yeah,
about these things, and say, maybe we can help you. Let's
yeah,
talk. Let's figure out how
exactly.
to have a conversation on it. And with that,
Exactly.
I noticed we're at the top of the hour. We do not have our other roundtable participant to talk about Biz Sugar this week. So I don't know if you have anything to add there, but I think we're
Um,
about out of time. And
yep.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in, listening to our meanderings. And we're always open to hear what you have to say because I will be the first to admit I'm never the smartest person in the room. And if I ever am, I'm clearly in the wrong room. So
Oh, you're too
I always
funny.
want to hear what other people have to say.
The Biz Sugar is, I think we're covering, let's see, growth mindset this month. This is March. I'm not sure the specifics of tomorrow, but you can find any link. You can find it. I know you can find it on uh, the community at socialcafe.net. And right now that is free. So if you go over to socialcafe.net and click on calendar, you'll get the link to go to the Tip Talk event that happens tomorrow on Wednesday. And with that, we will see you same time, same place here, Social Cafe, and also the link for Thursday's event. Everything that you need as far as events is in that calendar, socialcafe.net. So we'll
Absolutely.
see you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Bye now.